You know, in order to celebrate the fact that winter is ending and we are now getting into spring, right? I think it would be appropriate that by putting on this coat, getting the cap on, I might as well talk about a winter book that I think would be a proper send off for you guys. Mainly because I didn't want to review this during next Christmas because that's a time of year where you're supposed to enjoy your days, spend time with your family, enjoy the ambience, and just have a good time. Christmas to me is fun memories. And reading this fucking horrendous book, rereading these bullshit ass stories, and then having to review that for Christmas is not something I'm willing to do. So instead, I'm going to send off my happy holidays a little bit later and just say goodbye to winter by reviewing this piece of dog shit, all right? Fuck Christopher Golden for editing this book. Fuck every author for writing these piece of shit stories, except for 3 who delivered a good, great, and fantastic story. And fuck me for wasting my time reading this shit after I got warnings not to read it, okay? Now, obviously, Goodreads, of course, has out of 1,700 plus ratings, I think like a 3.7 stars out of 5 for this collection. Joe Rogan DMT out in the middle of Foghorn Island with the grizzly bears. That's what they're doing. They're smoking DMT out on Grizzly Bear Island. I hope you get mauled to death while having that experience of your life reading this book, okay? Because screw you for rating this 3.7 out of 5 stars for this piece of shit. No way. But my friend Horror FFA, who has a channel, go check him out, told me that this was made by Blumhouse Publishing, and Blumhouse Publishing apparently is known for bad to really bad books. I saw Blumhouse and thought that they would have done something good because of ties, obviously, to Blumhouse. Nah, that's not the case. They produced some shit. So let's talk about it, all right? And if you want my review for this book, let me hit it to you in the best way I can say possible. This book is a candy cane sprinkled piece of reindeer shit left behind on Santa Claus's bed after Mrs. Claus got doggy-styled by Krampus, caught in the middle of the act, doing it out to Jingle Bell Rock. At the same time, her browser history got leaked, and it was 19 videos in there from xxxjackandofffrost.com. That's what this book is. Fuck Blumhouse Publishing. Fuck the authors for writing these shit-ass stories, except for 3. And fuck me for wasting my time with this shit. This shit is getting immediately a 3 out of 10 as an anthology. You know what? No, this is the worst horror book that I've read. So you know what? This is actually getting a 2 out of 10. This is a 2 out of 10 as a short story collection, which means it's the worst horror book I read, because a 2 out of 10 as a full mainstream novel is one thing. A 2 out of 10 from 18 different authors, some of them being well known, pumping out this piece of shit that's over 300 pages long of Krampus's worst nightmares on Christmas. No, man. No, man. And not nightmares in a good way. Nightmares in a literal fucking bad way, bro. I will never read this fever dream piece of shit ever again in my life, and I don't recommend you guys pick it up. Although the last story in here is best Christmas horror story I read. That being said, that author excluded, and another story that's quite good as well, I suggest you read. Aside from 2 stories out of 18, do not pick up this piece of shit. So, I wrote down all 18 stories. I'm going to briefly go through each of them. I don't want this video to be 30 minutes long. I'm not wasting my time with that. But yeah, man, this book is an absolute piece of shit. If Grandma got ran over by a reindeer, I hope to God that I got run over by the entire herd after reading this book. All right, I hope Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer gets his fucking red nose popped off by a fucking CIA fucking spec ops sniper, Barrett 50 cal, straight to his nose. Because if he had some relation to this book, I'm shooting his ass. All right, we're going to eat venison. I'm going to be on the... Y'all want to smoke Joe Rogan's DMT out on Foghorn Island? Guess what? I'm going to eat some nice venison. I'm going to skin alive that motherfucker. And then we going to enjoy reindeer. And guess what? I'm vegetarian. So me doing that is just out of spite against Christmas for bringing forth the idea of making this book. That's all there is. So let's get to each of these stories. There's 18, so I'm going to make it relatively quick, but I'll give my thoughts to it in a brief synopsis. So first story in here is Absinthe and Angels by Kelly Armstrong. Note to you, I did not write every author's name on here. I only wrote it for the ones that were memorable. And this is the very first story in here. So this is Absinthe and Angels by Kelly Armstrong. And the first story is fucking dog shit. So I wanted to mention Kelly Armstrong's name. Kelly Armstrong, if you're listening, fuck you for making this piece of shit. And fuck you for making it the very first introduction story to this book. All right? And of course, I don't know you, Kelly Armstrong, as a person. This is all jokes. This is all fun and games. Not really, though. Fuck you for making me read this. But anyway, your story sucks. Absinthe and Angels or Abstinent and Angels. I don't know. I'm going to say Absinthe and Angels. Abstinent, the alcohol. You guys know it probably. Maybe more than you want to. And Angels is about this couple that are basically vacationing out into this cabin in the woods during the snowy winter time. They're basically, of course, they have absinthe. They're drinking. They're enjoying a nice time, reading books, spending time with each other. And what ends up happening is these people show up at their cabin in the woods, and they got these pillow masks pulled over their face. They got drawings on them, and they're basically saying, "Give us food, give us wine," in unison, like some type of freaky ass cult. And apparently these guys are mummers, which apparently mummers is some culture where during Christmas people dress up in these terrifying, purge serial killer type of costumes and then do these creepy ass chants and knock outside people's windows to scare you or scare kids. I don't know what bootleg ass scary ass culture this comes from. Probably from New Orleans, because that place is always full of some voodoo creepiness. If any mummers pull up outside my house, just saying, putting it out there, forget food and wine. You're gonna get Remington buckshot straight to your dome piece, and that pillowcase is gonna be hauling you out of there. Because do not pull this shit, people. This is how you get shot. This is how you get killed. I don't know who practices this, but remind me not to go there. Anyway, these mummers are out there. They're begging to be let in. As soon as they try to scare them off, these guys apparently try to get inside, and they seem pretty creepy and eerie. And something happens later in the story something very horrific, and then maybe there's a dream sequence that ruins it, and then the ending is pretty fucking stupid. The main reason this sucks is because really nothing happens. It's creepy, but that dream sequence bullshit basically ruins the whole thing, and the ending makes absolutely no sense, and you're left there scratching your head. This story gets a 4 out of 10. Trash start. Next up is the second story, Christmas in Barcelona. This is by Scott Smith. I think Scott Smith, if I could be wrong, I could be wrong. I think he wrote The Ruins, which is a creature feature book I see on a lot of good lists, like the best creature feature books on Goodreads, and even the best horror novels. I see The Ruins on there. I think he might have wrote that. I do want to get around to reading that. That is on my to be read. Not anytime soon, but I want to read that book, and I heard good things about it. However, this short story he wrote is fucking reindeer shit. This is not good, bruh. Christmas in Barcelona is again about a couple and their baby. They're going out to Barcelona on vacation, and everything is going wrong. The baby's crying. They lose their luggage. There's like a solid 3 pages or 4 pages of them just bitching and complaining about everything going wrong. Meandering ass complaining for the first 4 pages or something. And then as they get into Barcelona, the husband tries to go out and get some groceries, and he ends up stumbling, I think Christmas Eve night or something. Christmas Eve, he's walking around in Barcelona, gets some groceries, and then he sees this kind of merchant place where they're selling stuff, and it's this old woman who's got these little wooden sculpture figurines there, and it shows Jesus and a bunch of different Christmas imagery, I think from the Bible. And she tells him to basically wait until it hits midnight or something, and as he does so, he finds out that these little figurines can come to life, and it's a donkey, an ox, and I think a soldier. They're able to walk around, act like animate objects. So they're like tiny little animals moving around, They come to life in a way, little figurines. And he decides to take them home. He thinks it would be a great way to mend relationships with his wife and make his kid happy. So he gets back to the hotel, he shows them off, and let's say the ending to the story is a little twist as to something that may or may not go wrong. I like the twist at the end of the story, but aside from that, this story was really just sort of meandering, boring, and stupid. Not really anything happens. Again, a solid 4 pages of just them fucking bitching and complaining, and then the last reveal of, what these figurines possibly could do is more so just like a freak accident twist ending. It's not like any malicious thing specifically. So whatever, dude. I don't give a fuck. Christmas in Barcelona gets a 3 out of 10. Shit. Fresh as Fallen Snow is the next story. It's about these kids who have these neglectful and mean parents, and they need to get a babysitter. So this babysitter comes, she's like this older European lady, and as their parents go off and try to, I don't know, spend time with each other, maybe do some stuff, she basically takes care of them and then tells them this kind of like bedtime story about how Santa Claus has stories, Krampus has stories, Winter has stories, and all these stories exist about these mythical figures. But the one that's not talked about is the Snow Maiden. And the Snow Maiden is apparently this kind of witch-like sorceress woman of the winter that essentially treats kids as fallen fresh snow, and that any bad kid should not be punished because the parents are the ones that are at fault for creating bad kids. Neglectful parents, mean parents, they shape kids into being bad. Kids themselves naturally are not bad, especially when they're very young and impressionable. So she tells a story about how this snow maiden will basically then turn bad kids into snow, and then they'll basically be reincarnated as new people with good parents. Interesting story premise, but the story is basically like the parents being bitchful, and then they get into the story, and then the ending is like pretty decent. I like the decent ending. It has a nice little emotional thing, but really the story is a little bit too ambitious for me to be a short story. I would prefer it to be longer, but it was a decent enough story. So I gave it a 5 out of 10. You know, it's not that good. It's not that amazing in execution, but the concept is interesting. I like the babysitter angle, and the ending was pretty decent, even though it was good in concept, just not that good in execution. So it got a 5 out of 10. It's an improvement. Next story is Love Me. Love Me is about this guy who's down on his luck. You know, he can't really get a job. He's kind of drinking at bars all the time. And he ends up, you know, realizing that this woman, I guess, or some couple or woman lives out in this apartment. And one of his drunk buddy guys who stays with him all the time says that she has a bunch of antique items that are worth a lot of money, and basically convinces him that, hey, since you're down on your luck, you could rob this poor old lady, take all the stuff from her, sell it off, and make money, and you'll be better off. After some, you know, tribulations and convincing and, you know, having problems with his, you know, ex-wife, and, you know, he doesn't have custody of his daughter, so he kind of wants to make up for it and make his daughter happy. So he decides to go rob this place. And what ends up happening is that the old lady apparently has some object that is more than he could have hoped. And it is this teddy bear animate creature thing, this little monstrous animal that basically is nursing and suckling on the old woman and basically draining her energy, happiness, and emotion. And is basically always saying, love me, please love me. That kind of crazy ass alive teddy bear type of object. Very vicious, very sort of disturbing. And he basically has to run away from it, try to kill it. It turns out that the old lady was waiting for someone to break into her house and apartment so that way she can get rid of it. And then let's just say there's a big climax, a battle scene, and then something happens at the end of the story involving his daughter, which was quite disturbing. But again, the story is sort of, it's a very weird story, a very strange one. There's a lot of strange imagery in here, and it's not really explained what this thing is, what the origin is. It's just sort of kind of like a weird tale. And the way it's told, again, more so boring, more so but it was decent with the creature. I like the creature. I like the disturbing parts in it. And the story is fine enough. So I gave it a 7 out of 10. An average score. Definitely a step up improvement. Next story is not just for Christmas. Not just for Christmas. It's about this group of parents who basically get something called a Gen Pet. It's like a little alive toy that kids can play with. It's got like an AI thing in it, so it's constantly learning. It adapts human language. And then this big, I guess, cyber hack or glitch happens, and these things start talking shit and cursing out people and leaking out their history, making people's lives miserable. So they try to get rid of them, and then something happens at the end of the story where the Gen Pets get some comeuppance and revenge. So that one to me got a 5.5 out of 10. There's definitely some comedic and funny parts in there involving the Gen Pets. I like the killer alive toy angle, but weak execution. That's a common theme in here. Weak execution. This ends up being more so strange and boring and weird than actually good. But is a fun enough idea that I give it 5.5 out of 10. Okay, meh. You know, a little bit shitty, but a fun type of shitty. So good, so bad it's decent. Next two, in fact, are the worst stories I've quite possibly ever read. So I wrote out the author's name to specifically give him a fuck you. Tenants by Josh Mallerman. Fuck you. I hope Krampus drops off that killer Jack in the Box shit in your fucking attic. Fuck you for making me read this. Tenants is about this group of college friends who have this Christmas party, and one of the guys, I guess, came back from jail, and he brings in this down on luck kind of depressed guy over to the party, a stranger, and everyone's like, why would you bring this stranger? And turns out that this guy may or may not have been part of a cult, a local cult in the town, and the entire story is about this guy being depressed, saying very little, and like them trying to figure out what this cult exactly was. Did he run the cult? Did he do bad things? And he basically saying, no, it wasn't like that. You know, he's kind of very disappointed that this cult stuff even happened, but they have very little sympathy for him except for the guy who brought him in. And the ending of the story, I'm just going to spoil it because the story's shit. I don't know why you'd want to read this. A bunch of Christmas carolers show up after all this useless ass investigating at the party. Christmas carolers show up. They're a bunch of women with raggedy ass clothes, dirt in the hair, nasty teeth, and they're just singing. And then they look over at the guy sitting on the couch and they smile, and that kind of hints that they recognize him. So he probably did have a cult. And then he sort of looks down and he's depressed, and the story ends off just with them singing. Fuck you, Josh Mallerman. Your story gets a 1 out of fucking 10. One of the worst short stories I ever heard. Go fuck yourself. Next story is called Good Deeds by Jeff Strand. Fuck yourself as well. I hope Krampus drops off those killer-ass elves to kidnap all your books and all your belongings and run off with that shit in the middle of the night. And then that python in the snow grabs you by the ankle. Story gets a 1 out of 10. Good Deeds is about this super egocentric, egotistical guy on like days before Christmas. This kid has a mother dying of cancer. He wants to buy her a new pair of shoes or something to make her happy. He buys it for him. And then even though all the people around him are happy that he did this good deed for the kid, he more so is very egotistical and says, I'm such a good person. Oh my God, I saved Christmas. I bought these shoes for him. I'm such a good ass guy. So he decides to go home and make a song. The song is like in tribute to the kid's mother who probably died of cancer despite getting this gift. Super morbid. He starts singing out this song. It becomes a smash hit, except this song for some reason has an unexplained curse that people just instantly commit suicide after hearing it. His lover commits suicide. People around him commit suicide. And he basically attributes it to being such an amazing song because emotions are taking over people and people are so fucking rude for not appreciating his music that they should be ashamed of himself. And it's just meant to be, I guess, like an overly gaggy comedic story. Fuck that one. 1 out of 10. It's a Wonderful Knife is by Christopher Golden, who wrote this and edited, oh, not wrote, but edited this book, Hark, the Herald Angels Scream. Fuck you. I'm so mad that you wrote this. And, well, not wrote, I keep saying wrote this as if he's responsible. You edited it. You made it happen. Fuck you. What did I give it? 6 out of 10. It's just about this Hollywood actress trying to become famous. She meets up with this Harvey Weinstein kind of guy who has this memorabilia movie collection. There's a disappearing invisible knife that comes within view like during Christmas, and she does something because of something that happened to her sister involving this Weinstein kind of guy. 6 out of 10. I'm just gonna hurry through because the video is getting too long. Mistletoe and Holly by James A. Moore. Pretty good story about a woman who wants to grieve over her dead military husband who died out in the war. There's something that helps her find a way to get back into connection with them. May or may not involve a ghost and one of her sister's lovers. Yeah. 7.5 out of 10. Snake's Tale is an apocalyptic story basically about, I don't know, this like changeling, all these kids disappearing on Christmas night every year for no reason. It leads to an apocalypse. What? There's some badass imagery involving the apocalypse and monsters coming out of the sea at the end. But aside from that, 6.5 out of 10. Second Floor of Christmas Hotel by Joe R. Lansdale is about these two old friends meeting up. And one of them owns a hotel. And there's a woman, a beautiful woman who apparently drowned out in a river by there. And basically they go out there, they go out and investigate. And there was a story, this ghost story that the owner experienced. That's kind of like a mix of like, Are You Afraid of the Dark water demons with a ghost and a boogeyman type of setting. One of the scariest, most horrific ghost scenes I've read in a story. And yeah, it was truly terrifying. And then when they go back to investigate the house, that whole scene is absolutely horrifying, involving somebody being killed. 8.5 out of 10. Pharaoh Street is about this woman trying to go vacation in London. She can't find anywhere to eat. She ends up at this fucking house, and there's a stupid ass, fake ass, dumb ass Lovecraftian ending at the end. Absolutely unexplained. 2 out of 10. One of the worst piece of shits I read. Not the worst, but one of the worst piece of shits I ever read. Dr. Velocity is by Jonathan Mayberry, one of Michael Goosebumps fans, or Night of the Living Dude, if you know him, favorite authors. His story fucking sucks. It's about this super artsy fartsy guy who's trying to bleed his heart out on canvas, and he's dealing with heartbreak, and he wants to go through some LSD trip to experience all these emotions all over again. And some handsome Squidward-ass doctor gives him a pill that can let him experience some fucking acid trip. And that's where the story ends. 2 out of 10. Yankee Swap is some fake-ass Saw story about some woman who ends up being kidnapped after a holiday party with these 6 other victims. They're all chained, and this fucking, Norman Bates, American Psycho, Jigsaw type of guy he wears like a Santa costume and a goblin mask, kind of resembles the cover of this book. And he basically starts torturing and trying to kill them on camera. And then there's a big reveal that's like, ugh. 6 out of 10 though. Had some disturbing stuff. Honor Thy Mother is about this woman who lives out in Salem where the witch trials happen. Her kids are visiting her on Christmas. She thinks they're ungrateful. You find out some origin story behind her. Really made no sense. It doesn't even involve witchcraft. It involves some other shit. Out of nowhere, out of the blue, not really explained. Meh. 4 out of 10. Home is about some post-apocalyptic world. This guy has this fucking disgusting ass rake-like creature that sits with him in a backpack, and this creature leads him out to some fucking site, fights off a bunch of random monsters, and it turns out that this rake monster thing likes constructing antique toys, and they have a happily ever after ending. 3 out of 10. Hiking Through is about this guy who is hiking out in like a forest. He's like a camp counselor. There's apparently some witch story, Blair Witch story out there about this witch that wanders. It's super boring. It's not as exciting as you think it'd be. It ends up being super lame, and it's some like urban legend passing of the torch type of ending. 3 out of 10. And the final story, Hangman's Bride by Sarah Pinsborough, is one of the best, most fantastic Christmas horror stories I read. It's about this chimney boy who gets taken in by this Scrooge-like chimney guy. They have a business, and he goes out to this old house that belongs to this guy who's a hangman. He hangs people, rich guy who hangs them, and he studies their faces. Really weird. And he has to clean out this chimney and furnace over there, and you find out this basically a haunted poltergeist ghost story thing. Involving potentially a Japanese yokai that may or may not have involved a woman that this hangman had relationships with. There's a murder mystery at this house, and it has some of the most genuinely terrifying, amazing ghost sequences in the furnace, and the ending is just a perfect wrap-up. Again, the story starts with this old man telling this young kid that he's babysitting this urban legend story. It pans out and tells this entirely long story, and you find out by the ending that this old guy may or may not have connections to this story, and it's quite beautiful and quite wholesome, yet simultaneously disturbing, dark, and really, really awesome, and intense, and creepy, but then wholesome, and wraps up in a nice Christmas horror way. The best Christmas story I probably ever read. 9.5 out of 10. Amazing. Is it enough for you to pick up this book? I want you guys to read the story, and I'll talk about it later in a best Christmas horror story, so I'm keeping it brief now. But is it enough to pick up this reindeer shit? No. Fuck this book. Fuck Christopher Golden. Fuck all these authors. The worst horror book I've ever read. Easily the worst anthology horror book I ever read. And yeah, if you want a way to ruin Christmas, go ahead and pick up this book. That's all I have for today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you like it, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. I got other Christmas horror stories that I reviewed on this channel. Check them out. I got other content as well. And yeah, please hit that like and subscribe button, especially that subscribe button. We are close to 200 subscribers, and I'll make a celebration video for that. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, and deuces. Yeah, Mrs. Claus getting doggy-styled by Krampus. That would have been more entertaining than reading this book ever again in my lifetime. There's probably a video out there somewhere on Pornhub about that. I'll go research.